Hi guys, it is your favorite teacher, Kaumaji Mwansa, and welcome to Learning Science the Easy Way. So I'm going to look at salts, even though this lesson is divided into two. So the first part is talking about what a salt is and the classification of salts, how salts are classified. Then the second part will talk about the preparation of salts. What is considered when you are preparing a salt? What method are you supposed to use when you are preparing salts? Okay, so we are going to start by looking at what a salt is. We want to describe a salt. So a salt, in simple terms, is formed when an acid reacts with a base. So when an acid reacts with a base, you are going to have salt, and as well as water is produced. But our main concentration is on a salt. So in other terms, we can say a salt is a compound that is formed when the hydrogen ions of an acid are partially replaced or completely replaced by a metal ion or ammonium ion. So let's look at this example. So we have nitric acid, and this nitric acid is surrounded by the cations, the positively charged ions. So we have the sodium ions, calcium ions, aluminium ions, and the ammonium ions. So when the sodium ions replaces the hydrogen in the acid, which is the nitric acid, we are going to have sodium nitrate as a salt. We are going to have sodium nitrate. When calcium ions replaces the hydrogen in nitric acid, we are going to have calcium nitrate, which is a salt. When aluminium ions replaces the hydrogen in nitric acid, we are going to have aluminium nitrate, which is a salt. When ammonium ions replaces the hydrogen in nitric acid, we are going to have ammonium nitrate, which is a salt. And these are what we can call as the nitrate salts. So here we have sodium nitrate, calcium nitrate, aluminium nitrate, and as well as ammonium nitrate. So this simply shows that for a salt to be formed, there must be replacement of the hydrogen ions of an acid by either the metal ions or the ammonium ions. We can also look at this reaction where we have sodium hydroxide reacting with hydrochloric acid to give us sodium chloride and water. So we have an alkali here, we have an acid, then we also here we have a salt, and we have water there. So our main concentration here is on how the salt is formed there. So if you look at sodium hydroxide, we can split this sodium hydroxide in ionic form, where we are going to have the sodium ions and the hydroxide ions. Then we can also put the acid in ionic form, where we have hydrogen ions and the chloride ions. So the concept here is that the metal ions are supposed to replace the hydrogen of an acid. So like in this case, we have sodium, which is our metal ion. Then this sodium is to replace the hydrogen. So when it replaces the hydrogen, it takes up the place of hydrogen in an acid. So what we are going to have, the hydrogen will take up the place of sodium. So when the metal ion replaces the hydrogen, we are going to have sodium ions here and the chloride ions. So when you combine these two, you have sodium chloride, which we are calling as a salt. So basically, a salt is formed when the cations of a base combines with the anions of an acid. So where the metallic ions replaces the hydrogen ions of an acid, the end product that we are going to have is a salt. So now, let's move on to look at some of the classes of salts. Types of salts, or the classes of salts. So, first one that we can look at is the normal salt. Normal salt. So the normal salt or normal salts are formed when all the hydrogen ions of an acid, or the hydrogen ions of an acid are completely replaced. For example, sodium chloride, zinc chloride, potassium sulphate. There are quite a number of these normal salts. We can also look at the other type of salts, which is the acid salts, So the acid salts, these are salts that are formed when the hydrogen ions of an acid are partially replaced. So here we are saying hydrogen ions are partially replaced. For example, if we have sodium hydrogen carbonate, that is one of the examples of an acid salt because of the presence of this hydrogen. Sodium hydrogen carbonate. Another example that we can look at is potassium hydrogen sulphate. That is also another example of this type of a salt. Another example here can be calcium hydrogen carbonate. Calcium hydrogen carbonate. It is another example of an acid salt. So another example of salts is the double salts. Double salts. So the double salts, these are salts that ionizes. So they ionizes in water to form 3 different ions. So they are able to form 3 different ions in solution, or when they dissolve in water, they are able to form 3 different ions. So from the 3 different ions, 2 ions are supposed to be the cations, meaning the positively charged ions. Then the other one is the anion. So 2 cations, 1 anion. These are the 3 different ions that are formed when a double salt is dissolved in water. So it is able to form 3 different ions in solution. For example, ammonium iron 2 sulfate, ammonium iron 2 sulfate is one of the examples of the double salts. So we have ammonium iron 2 sulfate, ammonium iron 2 sulfate. So in ammonium iron 2 sulfate, we have the cation, which is the ammonia ions, and the iron ions. Then we also have the sulfate ions, which are the negatively charged ions. Another example is potassium aluminium sulphate. So from here you are able to tell the 2 cations that are going to be produced in solution, and as well as the anion. So we have potassium aluminium sulfate, potassium aluminium sulfate. That is another example of a double salt. Like I mentioned in the beginning, I said this part is centering on what a salt is and the types of salts. Then in part 2, we look at the methods that are used in the preparation of salts. Thank you for watching. See you in the next part.